Coogs house. Houston is 3-0 for the first time since 2016 after beating down Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffalo. Coach Prime goes down in prime time in Houston.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, the sweaty, happy Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth sitting in his garage. I can't waste the morning to talk about this one. Houston beats Colorado 36-20. Today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Mazda, which somewhat ironically is that car right behind me is also a Mazda. We'll talk about that later in the show. I want to get to a bunch of things in the comments down below as we're going live. Tell us what your thoughts were throughout the game, what stuck out to you. Let's keep the good vibes rolling as the Cougs win once again, 36-20. The story of the show is going to be Conner Weigman and the offense. Big wig indeed. He's going to be the first segment. The second segment is going to be all about the defense. Third and final segment is going to be tip the cap and some nightcaps being handed out on the night that Houston goes 3-0 for the first time since 2016, 1-0 in the Big 12. Now, listen, I loved so much of Weigman's game here. And I know people are going to talk about the deep shot to Boogie. We'll get to it. The shake where he embarrassed that guy in front of his family there at the end of that one. And what a great move that he put on the goal line to get into the end zone. Look, I got to be honest, though. I felt like early he looked super confident throwing balls. He found Amari Thomas over the middle, tight window, throw to Kogel early. Even the confidence early on to where, like, instead of trying to like let one rip or make something happen, he like took a sack or maybe a net yard of zero play early to set up a field goal. Look, he was in command of the offense of this game from the jump. 220 yards passing, big night there, 15-24. No touchdowns, but no picks either. The big thing for Weigman, though, in this one, the 83 yards on the ground, I don't think people were quite ready for. I joked throughout the week with people from Colorado about him being a little deceptively athletic. People weren't quite ready for that. But, man, the 2 touchdowns rushing, one of them admittedly being a 6-inch dive after a Dean Connors run. But I would point out that on that Dean Connors run, Weigman set up a good, for a quarterback, block to get in the way and kind of set a moving screen of sorts to get him in. What a freaking game. Dean Connors, too, 22 carries, 89 yards. Doesn't feel like it tells the whole story for him either. This offense, folks, it has been so long. It has been so long. I go back like 2022, I guess the offense was putting up these kind of numbers in the American sometimes. But honestly, that felt like a year of letdowns, and it's been a minute since the team has done this kind of thing. And I think the difference with this is when you add in Conner Weigman running the ball like this, it feels grittier and grimier, and you had the ball for what was in effect the entire third quarter. You had the ball for the majority of the fourth quarter. You really just went out and showed out. And what I want to say here too is that, like, as I look at this, a big moment to me was that they kept running the ball. They didn't seem to change anything they were calling, etc. After offensive lineman went down, right? So they entered the game with no Dalton Merriman starting right tackle. The course of the game, they have bumped guys around to cover that up and lose a left tackle. They also would later lose Agnello, who's kind of switchblade, Swiss Army knife kind of guy across the interior. And I tweeted out, but I said that with offensive line injuries mounting and they feel kind of like rough injuries, you're going to be young, and Slade Nagel needs to call things that are quick, simple, that help those offensive linemen out, that don't have to block for 3, 4, 5 seconds. And the veterans at other positions are going to need to step up and help them by executing those quick hitting plays. Man, if that isn't exactly, Weigman being decisive, balls coming out on time, Dean Connor, Stacey Sneed hitting the hole hard, not dancing around and waiting for something to pop up. They really took that kind of an attitude early in that process after the lineman went down. And I say linemen, plural, went down. Look, I love, and I see people commenting on it here too, Dean Conner's game on the whole. I think we'll find out at some point. Maybe it won't even be in the season. Maybe it'll be after. But like he looked a little banged up at points in this game, and he's a tough man, and he is running hard. And I don't mean to say that, but like he was grimacing, and body language indicated there was pain and all those kinds of things. And he played through it. They're down people in the running back room. Rashawn Sanford is down and not coming back this season, but Jamarian Burnett was out in this one from the jump. And Stacey Sneed is giving you all he's got, but you need to run multiple running backs in this offense. I think part of the reason they ran Boogie and Mackay on jet sweeps was really just to get someone else involved in the run game. I got Buffalo Burger here from Walter. Walter Williamson comes in and says Buffalo Burger. Houston Jeremy says, go Cougs. We got Yash emotional on this one. This one feels different. Dana's teams had no heart. Our wins used to feel like luck, not earned. Fritz is creating something special. This team has so much heart and toughness. I think you see that when this team runs the football like they did. Shouts to Voice of College Football at Colorado. We talked some this week on his channel. It says congratulations. Gotta love the classiness there. A couple of things. People talking about the call. I had written part of a segment. So there was a pair of calls. If you missed the first half or something, or tune in the show, having missed part of the game, there were a pair of calls in the second quarter that did not go Houston's way, that felt like they were going to turn this game. I'm sure talk about that throughout the week, but there was a very soft pass interference call. And then there was ultimately what was it on Weigman? The like he got face masked, as they called, but it was kind of rough from the passer. I forget which of those two penalties it was, but regardless, as he's getting twisted around by his face, he throws the ball in the dirt. Well, they called that a intentional grounding and negated the penalties instead of giving the Houston the 15 yards. If things had gone south, that would have been like a turning point. But one thing to Yash's point that he pointed out here, it wasn't that long ago that this program would have folded in that moment. Like, they're not going to give us anything and whatever. And instead, it felt like Houston came out of the half and said, fine, if they're not going to give us anything, we're going to go take it. And it took Weigman running the ball like that, the offensive line pushing. I mean, lots of offensive linemen involved in this one, and a lot of push in this one. I mentioned on like the deep shot to Boogie, they're in play action. It was kind of a soft fake on the play action, but Kogel is involved in blocking. McGarry is involved in blocking. Those who came to Houston be all in the pass game, right? And they're involved in blocking to set up the deep shot to Boogie. And then Conner Weigman. Conner, I don't know how to say this. That linebacker from Colorado has a family, son. That was mean. You didn't have to do that to him. You put him on the ground like you're putting him in timeout. That was just mean. He has a family, Conner. That was just, I can't believe that happened. The whole country now knows Conner Weigman can run, which probably means that like Oregon State and Tech and the next teams we play will be ready for it and all of that. But man, that adds a dimension to this offense that is so, so fun. And what I think is fascinating is 36 points is more points than you put up against Rice, right? And suddenly you're feeling like, okay, 36-20, like, okay, 20 is not what you wanted, but Ryan Staub can air it out. You also didn't know exactly what kind of offense you were going to see because the way that Colorado's had their year. And it felt like you handled a lot of things pretty well as they were thrown your way. They also had a Marion Miller come back, and he was not really projected to come back. He's a big-time receiver. We didn't talk about it because he wasn't supposed to come back. He's a big-time threat in their receiver room, kind of a do-everything athlete. You negated him. Houston's offense, though, as we wrap up that portion of the show here, just so big. Boogie ends up breaking 100 yards for the first time in his career, which feels like, honestly, our bad, collective bad as a program that he hadn't had 100 yards before this point, but I'm glad he got it tonight. I waited a few more times. Amari Thomas, 3 catches for 50 yards. Man, that fourth down slant he had in the game was still pretty tight. That was important. And I don't know how much, I mean, it's 4th and 4. He caught the slant about 6 yards downfield. I don't know how much more wiggle room there was in that. They didn't come back to it later. I would point out, like they knew that they won a gamble there. Kojal had his 4 catches, but it's the first time this season that he was not the leading receiver in terms of total catches. That was Boogie Johnson. Shouts to Luke McGarry getting his catch as well. He didn't get any yards on it because he got tackled on scrimmage, but shouts to that. Just big-time plays from lots of big-time players. And again, Conner Weigman embarrassed that man on national television. ESPN prime time. Coach Prime goes down. I want to talk about the defense in 1 second. But before we get to that defense, I do want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Mazda. Not just because there is a Mazda behind me, but this game is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, but about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board, that move crowds, move culture, keep moving the game forward. Now, I feel like this is one of those moves. Look, you could talk about the Weigman play where he sat that dude down. You could talk about the bomb to Boogie. I think you talk about the trick play where Houston decided to not run with it, and Dean Connors decided to go score, and Conner Weigman as a quarterback goes in and lays a block. I mean, whichever one you want to pick, there were several moments in this that moved this program forward. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here. And I do want to give the defense their shout outs. This is a game we're going to talk about the offense. The offense is fun. It's easy to digest. Over 400 yards for the first time in a long time. 36 points in a conference game. You beat Colorado. You beat Coach Prime. You did it in style. There were swagger plays. Lots of confidence oozing all over the field. I need to tell y'all, though, that I think Carlos Allen looks like an NFL caliber defensive lineman. This is 2 games in a row. Last week against an option style offense. This week against a power 4 offense with big time linemen. What we heard this week that like one of their strengths they felt like was how much they bolstered that offensive line. Carlos Allen ate. And I don't mean like he had like a normal size. Like he ate like the kind of a meal the size of something Carlos Allen eats. Now, Carlos Allen, for what it's worth, played great side to side. I think he looked like he's playing a little banged up. He did finish tied for the team high in total tackles, though, at 7. And I would stress that is an interior defensive lineman tying for the team high in tackles. That implies he's beating double teams, chasing things down, and still making plays. I'm not saying it's not saying Houston's had great defensive linemen, had D-line go pro. I mean, Ed Oliver, Buffalo Bill, we just heard he's not going to play this week with the ankle, but like he made the play of the game last Monday night, right? Like Houston's had great defensive linemen. I'm telling you, Carlos Allen is the next one of those you're going to hear about in the NFL, right? Like guys that big, that strong, moving that well side to side laterally don't just happen. Carlos Allen dominating up front. Sione Fotu dominating up front. Eddie Walls. They told me this guy was a pass rush specialist, and he's dominating the run game. Honestly, and this is more, I think, schematically, it looked like to me Colorado was not going to put LaTrevion McCutcheon in spots to make plays. And what was fascinating to me about the schematics here for Houston was that just meant other dudes made plays. I think that if they're going to run away from 10, we're going to go find our stuff over here. If we're going to roll out away from 10, we're going to go find our money over here. Houston found ways to continue to make it happen. This Colorado team had not turned the ball over through the air yet this season. Houston picked them off twice. Now, admittedly, one of those was late in the game. They've got to heave it deep or whatever. But Houston picked off Ryan Staub twice. And he, in a room of 3 passers that are apparently Power 4 caliber, they tell us, he is the best one. And Houston picked him off twice. There was a gnarly play down the stretch I have not heard or seen an injury report on where 2 of Houston's DBs collided. I was texting with Drake Toll, who's Locked On Big 12. And he goes, this injury thing, man. And I said, and he'd been texting me all night about the injury thing. And I was like, that's got to be the most Willie Fritz defense way to get hurt, where you and your teammate are both going so hard for the ball that you run into each other so hard you come up a little woozy for a second. I don't know what the injury was. We'll see how things go. But honestly, this was just such – I mean, Latrell McCutcheon, I guess he had the one penalty that I thought was kind of soft, but he did have his shoulder, right? He played phenomenal shutdown defense. Khalil Laufau. I'm going to get that right. And Khalil, DM me if you hear this and you want me to say it correctly. Oh my God, that guy's so good. True steal in the transfer portal last season. I thought Zelmar Vader was going to play more. They didn't need his length on Sincere Brown quite as much as they needed the other guys' kind of wiggly jitteriness on Omarion, but they did a great job bracketing him. And for what it's worth, to have a game plan for Omarion when he came in the game and what they were going to do with Marion Miller, a true, like a future NFL talent on the Colorado team and the receiving room, to be able to bottle him up in a way where you didn't really see him play much yet this year, I think speaks to the preparation that Austin Armstrong had in this one. I didn't think Omarion Miller was going to play, and they were ready for it. Sincere Brown had just 2 catches for just 15 yards. You take that every day of the week. Every single day. You held, this is almost funny. The entire Colorado Buffalo team had 96 yards rushing. Conner Weigman had 83. You add that 15-yard face mask penalty that they didn't call, and suddenly Weigman's legs are accounting for as many as the entire Buffalo's. Right? Like, oh my Lord. I also look at this across the board here, right? I look at other guys that made big plays on defense. As I was going through taking notes here, I did think that it was interesting that Houston gave up 1 relatively yard rushing touchdown in this game in the late second quarter. It did look like to me they kind of, whether it was heat, they had the ball in midfield and you're trying to get your guys in soon or whatever. It looked to me a lot of backup guys in the box for defense that one, and how'd that work out? A couple great punts. Defense and special teams kind of go hand in hand. A couple great punts, pinned them deep a couple times, flipped the field. And then Sanchez, the Sanchez, kicking 5 field goals. They're like 48, 49, 52. I mean, what a weapon. And especially when you have a defense that can play shut down defense like that. Again, a quarterback that they didn't really know a whole lot about because he hadn't played a lot of football yet this season, didn't have a whole lot of game planning on him, but had quite the arm, has a bunch of weapons around him. Man, I felt like the ability to keep him shut down and continue to score points 3 at a time, pretty much wherever you are when you cross the fit. I felt like that was a big deal out of Sanchez. So the Sanchez showing up, as Martin Marroquin pointed out on X, Sanchez showing up for Hispanic Heritage Night, and those two were having a good time with it. I'm sure Martin's talking about it somewhere right now. Let's see some comments on defense here. Also, we're about to get to Nightcaps, the Nightcap segment. So if you got someone you give a Nightcap to, call it out in the chat. More on Weigman. Talk about the kicker. I tried. Punt coverage, I'll agree with you here, Scott. Punt coverage might not have been as strong. I meant like the punter itself. The actual punts, I felt like were pretty strong as far as flipping the field goes. And I think that's a different thing than what you're talking about here. Man, so much love for the offense. I guess it's just nice to have an offense again. Keyshawn Henderson, Legacy won 68-0. Whoa, Keyshawn next. That's fun. So that's fun too. Think about this defensive discipline with those guys coming in to kind of breathe in the culture being built right now. Think about that. That is so crazy that this culture being set by these guys is going to get that infusion over the course of time. Lots of optimism here. And here's the funny thing is, I always think I get blamed as being like the guy's way too optimistic, right? They're like, Parker showed up. Parker thinks going to beat everyone. And so far, by the way, we have beaten everybody 3-0 for the first time since 2016. But I also feel like people are seeing kind of how these things can go together. When we said they were vanilla on purpose against Stephen of Austin, or they didn't show their whole trick bag against Rice, or they were pulling things back at different points. And we were like, oh, no, you're being ridiculous. No. The game was too tight for too long. And like, no, it's a preseason game. They're getting ready for things. And this is a team that looked ready. This is a team that looked ready to come out and play Big 12 caliber football. Now, I don't know where Colorado finishes in the Big 12. I don't. And we'll talk about it more in the third segment, I'm sure, but I do think that this is a powerful win for Houston for a lot of reasons. And first and foremost, it's a year where, let's be honest, the schedule's not as challenging as it was a year ago. You're heading to Oregon State in 2 weeks. You got a bye week. You can't lose that one. You go to Oregon State in 2 weeks. They look like crap so far. They may, they may be back with when we get to them. But then you got Tech at home on the 4th of October. Call game day. They both could be 4-0, 5-0. That'd be a big deal for the Big 12. We'll talk about that and more, I'm sure, throughout the week. So we'll kind of table that for a second. But I want to give out some nightcaps and folks in this one in just a second. But before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Drip Drop. Because listen, if you've had a couple nightcaps, you might need to make sure you have some Drip Drop. Stay on top of your routine, whether it's working out, long days on campus, trying to focus through back-to-back classes, whatever the case may be. Hydration is where it all starts. That's where Drip Drop comes in. Doctor develops and scientifically proven for fast hydration. Uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids, quickly delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of the leading sports drink. Now, listen, I mentioned I'm sitting in a garage. I mentioned I'm sweating. I mentioned there are people in each room of my house right now, and that's why I'm going to record out here. But I was like, I can't wait to talk to you. I'm going to talk through the sweat. I feel confident because I'm hydrated. I Drip Drop all day long. I'll probably have another half a thing of Drip Drop before I go to bed and keep the rest of it at my bedside table before I get thirsty in the middle of the night. Now, right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Head to dripdrop.com. Use promo code Locked On College at dripdrop.com. Promo code Locked On College for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Today's show is also brought to you by everybody over at DoorDash. Talk about who's delivered. It is a victory weekend, not a victory Monday, a victory weekend for the Houston Cougars. And this week's MVP, guess, Conner Weigman. Powered by DoorDash. Just like him, you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks. Saving more every time you order. These players delivered just like you when it matters most. Let's break it down. Weigman had the big bomb to Boogie. He had the big passes over the middle, the clutch play over the 4th down, 4th and 4 to Amari Thomas, and a couple rushing touchdowns of his own to seal the deal. Conner Weigman came through, no hesitation, and no delay. You've been watching week after week. This might not surprise you that he was building up to this. It certainly didn't feel like a fluke. Now, Conner Weigman is on a streak and getting streakier. And just like Weigman delivered for the Coogs, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, that's tomorrow. Spend your victory day with the DoorDash meal. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day, and only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo goes through November 18th. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here, talking nightcaps, wrapping up a victory Friday night. Now, I was a little skeptical on the Friday night. I still am not sure. We'll see what the TV numbers do and all of that. I know there were a bunch of tickets sold. I don't think that all those tickets ended up in butts and seats in the stadium. Friday nights can be challenging. Getting there on time, getting there from work can be challenging. Friday night's a very high school football night for so many people in the great state of Texas. Totally get that. I worried about that when they scheduled it. However, now that it's over, this weekend feels super easy. You can breathe easy. You can have a nightcap and relax and go about your weekend with a Houston Cougar victory in your back pocket. Now, I mentioned Carlos Allen. I want to point him out as a nightcap kind of guy. Carlos is a great guy too. Really nice guy. I met him at Big 12 Media Days. And so maybe I'm being a little biased there, but I continue to be impressed by how much better he's moving this year. And it's not like he cut a lot of weight. He's still a big, strong guy. But how much better he's moving this year. It wasn't just because it was Rice. It wasn't just because Stephen F. Austin did it against Colorado tonight too. And I'm telling you right now that Colorado left tackle is going to be an NFL football player, like a top 2-round pick NFL football player, right? And so Carlos Allen gets a nightcap from me. Obvious nightcap also goes to quarterback Conner Weigman, leading an offense to over 400 yards for the first time in a long time. Also worth pointing out, he had a couple rush touchdowns himself. Big night out of him. And so we've talked about him ad nauseum. I don't want to go too crazy far, but obviously he gets a nightcap. I'm going to Amari Thomas. I mentioned the big catch in the middle, but he had 2 other catches where he had to come back to the ball. They were kind of, I'll say, underthrown, but I don't want to throw too many shots at Conner here. But I say those were underthrown. Honestly, he came back to them, made big plays, made big first downs, and Houston was kind of a machine early, tipping away. And had one of those not happened, or had the underthrow been too far under, or he couldn't get back in his route or whatever, that things could have gone south early and maybe a little more competitive throughout. I also want to give another shout out, or another tip of the cap, I should say, a nightcap of sorts, to Jesus Machado. Came in, he did not play as much, I think, as he might have hoped when he came to Houston. He ended up with 4 total tackles in this one. Kind of a silent killer there for a second. Another guy who talk about silent killer, Corey Platt. I mean, tip of the cap, nightcap, whatever you can give to that guy. That guy continues to impress in a limited action. He comes back from 2 Achilles tears. For the folks new to the show, or that don't know Corey Platt, he left Tulane with NFL caliber grades as far as his analytics stuff goes. Followed Willie Fritz to Houston after tearing his Achilles at the start of the 2023 season, and said, I'm going to follow Willie Fritz. I'm going to go play for him. That guy's going to help me get to the league. And he was good enough. And then, as training camp approached for the 2024 season, first year in the Big 12 for him, first year with Fritz at Houston last year, he tore his other Achilles. Platt continues to impress and amaze. He actually got credit with the sack. I was wrong on Twitter. I thought he just got to hurry. He got the sack. They called him down on 4th down. Credit to Corey Platt for that. So many people would have just hung it up. So many people would have. And Corey Platt does not nightcap that way. Nightcap to Mark Stampley, big plays on defense in the defensive backfield. Nightcap to Jalen Garner. Jalen Garner is freaking everywhere, man. And you heard Colorado, I don't know if you were listening to their, midweek media stuff, but their players they were saying 36 is tough. 36 is tough. And played tough tonight. 7 total tackles. And again, it felt like he was in on a lot of plays, even if he wasn't getting the tackle, in on pass breakups, in the area when passes were underthrown or whatever. Because he felt impactful tonight. I don't feel like we've done an adequate job as well, and giving a nightcap, tip of the cap to the running back room. I'll say the running back room. Dean Connors, 22 carries, 89 yards. Stacey Sneed, 9 carries, 35 yards. That's over 100 yards out of your running backs. And those guys are playing when they thought they'd had like 4 guys. They're playing with just the 2 of them. And let's be honest, in a Slade Nagel offense, that's a lot to ask for. That's a lot of carries, a lot of beating. Both guys got dinged out at different points. I think Dean Connors really did get hurt a little bit a couple times, like when he almost scored in the one on the pylon, the trick play. He decided to tuck and run. Man, oh man, Dean Connors was good. Man, oh man. Stacey Sneed, the most happy I've ever been wrong about a guy. I said I thought I should play slot. I still think he'd be a really good slot. But I thought he should have played slot, and now he's out here leading Houston Cougars as a running back to victory, 3-0. Showed me. I'm happy you did, Stace. Really happy. Really, really happy you did. Now, Houston Cougars get a much-needed week of recovery, a bye week this week. You can't lose those. You can only get better. That's the goal, is to get healthy. Then you head off to Oregon State for a non-conference game. Last I checked, Oregon State's 0-2. I believe we'll be breaking them down over the course of the next 2 weeks, get into the rest of Big 12 play after that. Now, I did tell you, I think Corvallis is a fun road trip based on talking to people around the Locked On Network all over the country. So if you're going to that one, let us know what you're doing. We'll keep in touch as far as things go there. I'm not making it myself, obviously, but I want to live vicariously through the fans. So comment about how things are going if that's going to be your MO. We'll also, there's this whole basketball thing Houston's got going on campus. I don't know if you heard about that ever. We'll probably talk about that at some point in the bye week, just to make sure we have updates. We finally have a second to, right? Too much football going on lately. Didn't have the time to. So we'll make sure we get into that this week. We got lots of fun stuff coming to Locked On Cougs. Lots of fun stuff. It's hard to be more fun than 3-0, man. It's just hard to be more fun than 3-0. Locked On Cougs, proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs, baby. Go freaking Cougs. 3-0. 3-0.